Counting the.
Cost of getting over your allergies.
Wow. When did you have allergy?
I didn't have allergies when I was young, but when I got into graduate school in my doctoral program, I got very sick. And in the process, I acquired many allergies.
So, what caused your sickness?
I think it was a combination of things, but part of it was stress. I became I had developed a habit of kind of cringing in my inside when I was under stress, getting kind of fear, tremors of fear. When I was under deadlines, pressure of deadlines, and in a doctoral program, you have lots of pressure and deadlines. So it got more and more severe in terms of my inner fear, and I think that was part of it. My attitude of fear, not trust, and part of it was I was also not eating very well. I didn't have a very good diet. And a third thing, of course, was when I was under a lot of stress, I stopped exercising, which had been a part of my life in the undergraduate school and in my first master's degree. And I was also in a non-Adventist environment for the first time in my life. I'd always gone to Adventist schools, but I was studying at a state university, and I was also away from my family for the first time in my life. They had moved to Alaska. And so there was a number of factors. I was in Indiana. So there were a number of factors that kind of combined to cause me a higher level of stress, I think, than I had before.
Wow. So you were pretty much stressed and overworking and then not exercising, having a terrible
Mm,
diet,
mm.
having a pretty much psychological meltdown in a sense. So, can you tell me how bad the schedule was? What it was like? Can you tell me from morning to evening?
I was working half time for the chair of my doctoral committee, and I was doing research for him, and so I had to spend quite a bit of time each week, at least 20 hours a week. But it usually was more than that because I was under pressure to get some, have results. So I was trying to synthesize and think and prepare articles for publication for him. Plus, I was taking a full load of classes and trying to graduate in 3 years because I had an assistantship and it only lasted for 3 years. And so you needed to get done in a certain amount of time. So I had a full load of classes and on top of that, I don't know if you've ever tried to study in an area that you've never studied before, but this was a completely new area for me. I'd never studied in the field of education. I'd always studied in undergraduate. My degree was in religion with a minor in biblical languages, and my master's degree was also in theology. And so I had a rather uh, narrow focus. I had, of course, general education classes. I had one or two classes in the field of educational department, but and some other general education classes in different areas. But I hadn't really had to focus in one field other than theology until that point, and I was completely a new vocabulary, new way of thinking, outside of Adventist culture, and tried to grapple with a different way that secular people think. Hmm. So those things all combined to make it harder for me to. I had to spend more hours just trying to make sense of the books and the articles I was having to read for both my research for my faculty supervisor, and also for my own classes and papers I had to write.
So pretty much it felt like a captive in a foreign land.
Yeah, I kind of felt like Joseph. I was in a completely foreign land with trying to learn things from bottom up. Trying to find my feet.
Away from your family, church.
Yep. Yeah,
Christian
I didn't know
schools.
anyone in the church there. It was a small, kind of dysfunctional church that had mostly old people and no one my age. So yeah, I was kind of alone. I was on my own.
So you felt alone. You had deadline. You had money. You had pretty much free money to cover your education. So you had a pressure to finish everything on time. Make sure you had to make sure you get A's so you don't lose money, right?
Right, right.
That sounds super stressful. So what time did you go to bed and what time did you wake up? Like
Well, when I was in the undergraduate, I had a very strict a plan of getting going to bed early at 9 o'clock every night and getting up at 4:30 or 5, and then jogging and then exercise and then getting a breakfast in the cafeteria. But here I was cooking my own food, and I was also I didn't have I kind of let that schedule go by the wayside because I was trying desperately to get papers done. And when you're I don't know how you write, but when I do papers, it's kind of like stay up all night and try to get it done, you know.
wow.
So I was burning the midnight oil quite a lot, and staying up all night trying to get papers written.
So you let go of the structure that you put up.
Right, yeah.
Did
I let the structure go out the window because of deadlines. Yeah.
so did you get back to the schedule within the 3 years that you had, or did you give up on the way, or what happened?
Well, I got very sick after the first year, in the summer after my first year, and then it took me about a year or so to get really realize. I mean, I had to figure out. And once I got sick, then I got all these allergies, and I couldn't get over the allergies. I couldn't eat. I was allergic to almost everything. I didn't know I was allergic. I just couldn't eat. I just vomit, and I didn't. I mean, I was just losing weight. I just kept losing weight until I was just down to 113 pounds, and I'm quite tall, so for that, I looked probably like a scarecrow. You know, I
Wow.
was pretty much skin and bones.
So how much did you lose?
Oh, about 20 pounds. For me, that's a lot. Uh, so it made me, I mean, because I'm thin naturally, and but I was always quite healthy. I exercised a lot, and I was a lifeguard. You know, and I swam a lot, and I ran, exercised. So I had a pretty, fairly healthy build. But I was losing muscle, and I didn't have much fat to lose to begin with. So yeah,
so
so I was really starting to lose my strength.
so what did you eat? What was your diet?
Well, at that point, wasn't really thinking a lot about diet, so I'd gotten in a habit of eating a lot of Life cereal with like juice as instead of milk, and it would taste good, So I kind of had kind of that, and I sometimes tried to cook some kind of like those quick mixes for my lunch meal or something, where like like macaroni and cheese or scalloped potatoes or something that you can get these things in the supermarket. And
Oh,
I tried some different
like a
things, but I
frozen
didn't like to cook,
like frozen
so I
items.
didn't. Yeah, no, usually they came in a package, so you
Ah.
can get, and then you mix it with water and then you cook it
Oh, kind of like a meal
kind of
kit.
quick, huh?
Kind of like a meal kit.
Yeah, kind of like a meal kit, or and some other things like stroganoff or like rice and noodles kind of dishes, things like that. You can get different ones in these quick meal aisle in the supermarkets. Yeah.
I guess when you live in a Adventist campus where vegetarian meals are served regularly, you just show up and eat, but having to figure out your own meal and creating that structure wasn't easy for you, right, at the time?
Right. I didn't have that. I'd always eaten in the cafeteria pretty much at Andrews, and so this was the first time where I really had to be my own cook, you know.
So did
And I
you?
didn't realize how important that was.
Wow.
and how much I was dependent, my health was dependent on, the kind of diet that I ate.
So you didn't have a fixed schedule, and then did you have a roommate, housemate, like any friends
No,
you hung out with?
no, I pretty much was on my own. I didn't have any friends in the community. The only people I really knew were back at Andrews, and so sometimes I would call if I was in trouble or something, call them for advice. But otherwise, I was pretty much alone. I was on my own with God as my only support.
So you're isolated on a public school campus, right?
Yeah, I didn't even know there were other Adventist kids at the campus when I first got there
So you didn't
for
have
the
any.
first year.
So you didn't have
Yeah.
any friends with the same religious, like
Not
beliefs.
really. Not really. That first year, I was just pretty much like on a desert island, and just kind of like, I don't know if you've seen the movie Survivor, that he was all alone on an island. I felt kind of like that. I was just
Wow.
me and my Bible and God and studying at the university, and my friends were non-Adventists there in the department. Yeah.
So not having friends that share the same values and worldviews and visions really kind of killed your social life, right?
Yeah, I was pretty much just studying. Yeah.
Wow.
I didn't have much of a social life. I was just trying to finish this doctoral program.
So you were kind of too busy studying that you didn't have time to look around and actually make friends and taking time to get to know people.
Yeah. And I mean, I didn't have much time to do any really
I see.
looking around. I went to church on Sabbath, but the people were pretty much, different of age group from me and stuff. And so I didn't really spend much time with them. Yeah, didn't
Okay.
go to eat with them.
Oh, I see. Just seeing them on
And
Saturday in the
just I would go
morning.
there for church and then I would leave immediately and go back to my house and yeah.
Oh, I see. Why did you call that church dysfunctional early? What happened?
There were some people in there that had kind of, I don't know, dysfunctional ways of relating to God and to uh, others and the devil. And so I didn't really realize it at the time, but the church had some problems with demonic harassment among the church members.
Wow.
And I didn't realize that until later. One of the doctoral students who'd been there before me told me later that that was one of the problems that the previous pastor had had. That one of the girls had gotten demon possessed, and they called in this kind of self-supporting ministry to try to cast out the demon, and they couldn't do it. And anyway, I didn't know anything about that. I just kind of walked in there, naively, and I didn't really understand that the devil is very real
Wow.
and that he has power, and we have to. God is our protector, and he has his angels as a guardian, as a shield around us. Yeah, but it was through that church that I first realized how real the devil is. Yeah,
Wow, that's amazing.
yeah.
So how did you embark on that journey of pursuing the doctoral program? What was the motivation behind it, and do you think it was a good decision to
I
pursue?
think it was. I think it was God's plan. I think God opened the door for me to do it. Otherwise, I wouldn't have gotten there in the first place. But at the same time, it was one of the most challenging and also the biggest blessings of my life. It was a time of tremendous growth for me spiritually. I learned to love people who are non-Adventists and want to have them saved. Before that, I didn't have really any real love for the lost. I was kind of stuck in my own world, and I was used to being around my family and my friends who were Adventists, and I didn't really care about people who were lost. Didn't love the Lord or didn't understand or know about the Lord. But being immersed in that environment, it forced me to realize and begin to have compassion and have a love for people who are not, who are not saved. Yeah. And God wants to save them.
So you pretty much learn to relate to the people that are not like you at the time.
Yeah. I really began to pray for them and just with with tears pray for them to be God to open the way for them to be saved.
Mm, I see. Wow, so interesting. So you got stress, your physical faculties went down, and you struggled. So how did you come to a point of being healed from that lifestyle?
Well, at first I didn't know what was wrong with me. I didn't know I didn't know what was wrong with me, and I had a lot of fear of my deadlines, but now I had this other fear of what was wrong with me physically. I mean, I couldn't barely even go to class, and or even had to just stay home almost one semester. I almost didn't have it. I was just too sick during that summer, and I went to the hospital, and they did all these tests like endoscopy and this um, barium enema with, or these different things they do where they try to look inside you and do radiation to see what's going on inside your intestines, and small bowel follow through, kind of where you drink this barium that's radiated and stuff, and then they take pictures of you, and I did all those things, and and they couldn't really find what was wrong with me. They didn't find anything really serious that was wrong with me. So they started thinking, the doctors started thinking it was in my head. But there were several things that happened that made me realize, sure, that it was not just in my head. And but the thing they did find was that I had what was called gastritis, which was evidence that it wasn't just in my head completely, which is the swelling of your stomach lining. You can get that from if you drink too much, or if your stomach is not digesting well, or if you've had too much stress. It's a pre-ulcer condition. It's the first stage before you get ulcers in your stomach. So
And
it starts the breaking down of your stomach
and when
lining.
ulcers get worse, what happens?
When the ulcers get bad, then you can die. I mean, but they start to bleed, and you have to they extreme. They have to cut out part of your stomach in order
Wow.
to. But they try to give you these medications to try to help it heal, and so I had to take those medications, and different kinds of medications, and the medications made me sicker. Uh, they gave me the jitters and made me depressed and out of control emotionally, and breaking down and crying. I couldn't control my own emotions, so I had to stop taking some of the medications they gave me. And I went to that's when someone suggested I go and see if I could find out whether I was allergic to something. So I went to an allergist, and then the tests, they tested me on all these different kinds of foods, and I came back allergic to almost every food that they tested me for.
Wow.
Wheat and everything. I mean, oats and all these, normally bland foods, and different kinds of vegetables, and yeah, corn. I was allergic to all kinds of things. Yeah.
And what did you do about it when you figured out that you had allergy?
Well, at first I went off all foods that I was allergic to, and so about the only thing I could eat was this kind of thing they give to cancer patients or people with really severe intestinal problems called Ensure, and it's kind of a soy drink that has all the nutrients in it for your to be able to survive at least. And so I was eating a lot of that as much as I could. but still I was having troubles even trying to eat, and I never had any hunger. I was always had pain and in my stomach and in my intestines and throbbing pain and blockage. I couldn't get my stomach to work right. It wouldn't empty. It'd be 3 or 4 days with just one meal. I could taste the same meal for days on end, and it would just till it was just so bad that I would vomit. Yeah.
Wow, that sounds so terrible. And then,
Mm.
and what did you do?
Well, I started to pray. I started to pray and ask God what was wrong. And there were and I sensed that maybe there was something God was trying to teach me through this. And particularly one day I went out for a walk, trying to release the pain in my stomach and get the things to go down that were in my stomach, at least so I could have less pain and let my stomach rest. And so I was out walking, and then there was this big thunderstorm, and I ran into this empty stadium that they were building, basketball stadium on the campus, and to get out of the rain. And I was in there shivering and cold, and it was lightning and thunder and huge rain coming down, and I was just thinking, God, why are you, where are you? Why have you forsaken me? Like David praying, my God, why hast thou forsaken me? And then this thought, Tim, there's something you haven't surrendered to me. And I was asking God, well, what is it? What is there what is it that it I need to have right with you in order for you to be willing to heal me? And uh, and then the thought came to me, you haven't surrendered your future. Your future has always been yours. And that was, you don't really want to do my will, you want to do your will and me to help you with it, kind of like that. So that was when I thought about it, and the more I thought about it, the more I realized I really wasn't surrendered to God fully in my life. And so I prayed, Lord, if you I played a simple prayer. I just said, Lord, if you want me to waste away and die, if that's your will, if there's something good that can come from it, I want your will to be done, not mine. I'm willing. And it was at that very moment that I said I'm willing, that suddenly the pressure inside me from all food that wouldn't go down just broke loose, and it just went down like a, and that was the turning point. It's like God didn't heal me completely, but He healed me enough so that I could begin making progress toward healing. Does that make sense?
Wow.
He gave me a crack of light, or a light at the end of the tunnel. And from that point on, I started to try to change my attitude, to have an attitude of surrender, an attitude of faith instead of fear. I began to try to place my life in God and to trust Him each day. And that was the beginning of my road to and with regards to the allergies, I read some about allergies, and I learned, and also from going to allergists, I learned that the allergist told me that allergies are not permanent, that we can reverse almost every allergy by reintroducing it into a person's diet in tiny, small quantities. And I think what had happened was that under stress, I eaten things, and those things, it's just my stomach until my system revolted against it, and my body decided it was something that was poison to me. Then it had registered it as poison, so then I couldn't eat it. Even such simple things as fruit or some things like that, or certain vegetables. And so my stomach was revolting against it, and as if it was poison. So I had to gradually reintroduce things back into my diet with very small quantity, and then wait 3 or 4 days or a week, and then try it again. That's what I began doing with one thing after another, slowly. And each meal, I would walk for a half an hour, and to get my, because walking and the fresh air and breathe deeply and feeling an attitude of trust rather than worry and fear, is your food. Ellen White says in one place, if you think your food is going to hurt you, it definitely will. In other words, your mind can make you sick. It can make you get allergic to things by your fear of, attitude of fear towards what you're eating. And people make themselves sick because of their attitude towards what they're eating. So I had my attitude, and that I did that by exercise and by changing my attitude and breathing deeply and fresh air after each meal. And then I began the discipline of going to bed early and not setting an alarm clock, and sleeping until I woke up, and then going for a nice jog every morning for an hour or so, and then eating breakfast, and then a good breakfast, and then going for a walk afterwards again. Even though I couldn't afford it with my studies, I had to do it. I dropped classes. I cut way back to only half time instead of full time. I just forced myself to rearrange my schedule so I could regain my health. Put that as the first priority. And gradually, I was able to get over basically every allergy that I had. It wasn't my doing. I think it was God's doing. But it was a slow process. Took several years, over several years. Yeah.
Wow. So whatever you told me just now, how long did it take?
To get what?
Like from the point when you broke down and then gradual healing.
Well, there was different stages of healing. Um, it took me about a year, about 6 months to really get so I was functional, you know. And then I went to several other medical centers for further tests, and I went to Indianapolis, and they did more tests on my stomach, and then I went to Mayo Clinic, and I had another about a week-long set of tests done, and they helped me the most. They helped me to be able to regulate my. They gave me about an hour or two of counseling after a whole week of tests, and talked with me about my symptoms and how to control them, and said that really what you have is what we would call irritable bowel syndrome, and it can progress into something more serious if you don't take care of it carefully. But if you regulate it carefully, you can get to be functional and work, be able to live a pretty normal life. So that's what I did. I began to try to really prioritize my health and my attitude, changing my attitude, and it took me about 5 years to get completely off all medications. 4 years to get complete, 4 or 5 years to get off all medications, and just using exercise and natural remedies to be able to live normally. Yeah.
Did you said earlier you tried some medication for your mental health or something?
Yeah, they gave me some kind. Well, not really for mental health. They were for my stomach, but they affected my mental health. They gave me a stomach emptying medication that really made me go bonkers, and I
uh,
had to stop taking it.
I see.
Yeah.
Wow.
One of the doctors suggested that I seek a mental assessment. They gave me a mental assessment at Mayo Clinic, and they said I was normal. But one of the doctors thought that I, maybe be taking some kind of go to a psychologist or something. Maybe it was all in my head. Yeah. But I didn't. I never did.
That's amazing.
Mm.
So the decision to drop the medication, did it come naturally or on your own, or like?
Well, at first, I tried to use the medications as a crutch for several years, but eventually, a doctor, a friend of mine who was an Adventist, he advised me you need to get off all those medications because they're not meant for you to use as a crutch on an ongoing basis for a long period of time. They have certain things in them that are now causing you side effects that are damaging and can actually hurt you. And later research has actually confirmed that some of those medications cancer. I was taking a medication called Levsin, and it can also affect your mental health. The longer you take a medication, the less good it does and the more bad side effects it has. If your body builds up a resistance to it, you have to take more, and with less value to you in terms of a crutch to help your system to function. And so most medications are only meant as a short-term fix, like a Band-Aid, until your body can heal itself. And if you keep taking it it actually becomes, it can actually weaken you after a time to keep taking medications. I was also taking a blocker, which is for keeping you from getting ulcers, and stomach blocker, different kinds of stomach blockers that block the acid from your stomach so that you don't get gastritis or ulcers, and those also can cause cancer. Yeah.
Wow.
So eventually, with the doctor's advice, I determined I was going to just use exercise and gradually try to wean myself off of them, and I was able to do that.
Wow. So
It wasn't easy, but I did it.
so you took 5 years to be healed, and then how many years ago was that the ending point of that 5 years, and then did you have any relapse, or how has been the post healing
When I came
process?
to That's a good question. When I went back to academia, and then there were several times I had to go back onto medication again because of stress of my studies. When I started studying again, I'd been working for 4 years just in a physical kind of job where I was cleaning carpets and washing windows and things. So it was not mentally stressful. But when I actually started going back to study and write paper and things, then the stress level was getting higher, and then I had to several times go back onto, and I was teaching on the college level. Several times I had to go back on those medications again, which for a short-term basis. But as soon as I was able to get my stress level down again, I would go off them as quickly as I possibly could. When I came to Korea, I had to shortly, for a short time, go back on them again because of stress of being a coordinator and having less time to sleep and more stress. Yeah, but I as soon as I could possibly do it, I got off them again. Yeah,
It sounds
usually
like
no, didn't stay on them more than a month or so.
schools kill you somehow.
Well, they there's a very few doctoral students ever get without getting seriously sick or
Wow.
even getting cancer or something because of the stress level. Yeah.
Sounds like you're happier moving your body manually. So, if you can give a piece of advice to 20-year-old Timothy, what did you do differently?
I would have given myself the advice to place more priority on my health and on less priority on doing all my papers perfectly, being willing to hand in a partly completed paper if I had to, rather than staying up all night, and just forcing myself to try to get something perfect done. Because I was kind of a perfectionist, and I always would take it beyond the level of. I mean, that's how I got to be, to be able to. I was a straight A student, through my master's program and most of my undergraduate too. So that was how I could get into a doctoral program easily,
Oh.
without any trouble. Yeah. So, but those, I mean, if you do it at the expense of your health, you don't have anything. You
Yeah,
can die.
that's true.
You can't help anyone if you're dead.
So, pursuing straight A's for a doctoral program is suicidal because it's just too much work, right?
It can be. The biggest problem was that I was always papers were always very stressful for me. I always struggled with writer's block ever since. It was a long process of kind of a growing fear, and as the papers got longer, it became more and more difficult for me to write in the short period of time. You needed much longer time to prepare, and I would always procrastinate because of my fear, and then I would try to do it at the last minute, and I would have to really just push it out with great energy, and my body just gradually broke down. It just couldn't do it.
Actually, I translated some of your work, and if you don't mind, I would like to say something about your writing style.
Oh, sure, sure.
Your sentences tend to be repetitive.
Uh-huh.
So I think you're doing more work than you need to.
Uh-huh.
That's what I noticed. So I think the reason why you tend to overwork when you write is because you're saying the same thing over and over and then you don't realize you're doing it.
Mm.
That's
You
just
mean when you mean saying as in repetitive, as in saying the things that you've already said before?
yeah. I just noticed
Mm.
that.
Mm.
I mean, I'm an English major, so I can kind of see things, even though I'm not perfect. But that's what I
Mm.
at least noticed.
Yeah, some people. One reason why I sometimes say the same thing again is because people don't catch it the first time around, and so
Yeah,
sometimes it's important to review, to make sure people are following you.
that's true. I think that works when you speak
Yeah.
more than when you write. But anyway, that's I just wanted to share that.
Well, one of the books that you have read of mine, actually, it was for speakers. It was they were all sermons
That's
at
true. That's
first.
true.
Yeah.
That's true. Because first,
So it could be that I should have had an editor go through it. I
yeah,
never had an editor go through it with a
yeah,
scalpel and cut
yeah,
every bit of dead wood. But when I was in graduate school, I had a good editor that did that for me,
yeah.
and he would cut out half what I wrote, you know. And so I learned that it's important to have a good editor.
Me too. I was an English major and I was writing, and then they were crossing out like pretty much so many things, 80%, 70%. So writing is not easy.
Yeah. No, it's uh,
Well,
and one of the professors I did share it with, he suggested I give it to a good editor. So
yeah,
that's a good point.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I hope.
I didn't have time to do that, so
Yeah, I
I mean,
hope.
I could have taken the time before, but if you know the background for that book that I wrote, we were kind of under pressure to get it published because of another situation related to my job situation. So
Oh, I see.
so that's why it got to publication before an editor
Oh, I
could
see. I see.
really go through it.
Yeah. So you have some time left to finish your doctoral work, right?
Yeah, I started my doctorate again after I came back from Mongolia, about 20 years after I did my first time around. I never finished the dissertation the first time around, and so I've been working part-time as I've been teaching here in Korea on my doctorate again, and I've been doing it nearing the dissertation writing phase again, which was failed to complete last time around. So, but maybe with God's grace, I will be able to finish it this time.
So last question. So what is your strategy to finish off your doctoral study strong as you continue this healing journey?
Well, that's a good question. My mother said, "Oh, Tim, don't do that again," because she knew how much of a terrible stress it was on my body the last time I did it. But my philosophy is, doctor is not most important thing. Most important thing is to keep my job and to so I can support myself and to keep my relationship with God first and to place a priority on my health. So I put those in ahead of my doctorate, and so but the as I have time, I work on it. And
Sure.
if I don't finish, I don't finish. But if I can do it with keeping those other things intact, I will.
Wow, I learned so much from you about how to live a strong, um, healthy life and have a balanced work-life balance. So the conclusion I made from interviewing you about immunity and allergy is that allergy is a symptom of weak immunity, and then when
Mm,
your body is getting stronger, allergy will go out the door. Is that correct?
that's correct. But I think sometimes, yes, the first thing is to build up your immune system. Once your immune system is getting stronger, then the your body is willing to consider the possibility of reintroducing foods that it has rejected back into as acceptable one more time.
Yeah.
And then you can, but you have to do it gradually. I mean, one of the reasons why people get allergies is that they have not eaten a balanced, varied diet. They've just eaten one thing too much. That thing gradually their body gets sick of it and then just rejects it.
Oh.
And and they've eaten too much of one thing, maybe for too many meals in a row, or not having a varied diet. And so the result, which was what I was doing, and when you add stress to that and you have low immune system, then your body begins just, rejecting all kinds of things.
Mm.
Babies, sometimes that happens. The parents fed them one thing too much, like maybe soy milk or something, and then they get this terrible allergy to soy milk. Why? Because they didn't have a varied diet.
Mm. I see. Yeah, my wife is suffering from pollen allergy, and I have a student that also has a similar problem every spring. So I hope both of them get healed, and then hope your story may help them and
Yeah.
others with allergies.
I'm not sure about the allergies to, some things like pollen. And it could be that those also can be healed by gradually being introduced. And but I think you first have to have a strong immune system, and then you have to have a way of gradually, rather than suddenly introducing a lot into your system, to gradually introduce a little, just little by little back into your system, and then your body will begin to accept it.
Mm.
That's what the allergists say anyway.
Wow.
And from my experience, that's what happened for when I did that. It was my
Oh.
strategy.
Thank you for giving us hope. I thought it was terminal problem.
I think the problem with pollen allergies is you don't experience it except once a year and in a lot of quantity at the same time, and so the person never has a chance to have for their body to gradually reintroduce it into the system.
That's true.
Mm.
Yeah, she lived in a house with with a cat, and then
Mm.
I think
Mm.
they moved over to pollen.
Mm.
Hope.
Mm.
I hope. I still have hope that she will get better. Thank you so
Mm.
much.
Yeah, but I would say also that it's very important for you to have those other natural remedies like trust in divine power.
Sure.
Like I mentioned that, and also, you know, um, those other natural remedies like sunshine and fresh air
Mm, yeah,
and regular exercise after every meal.
that's true.
Those things can actually build up your immunity until you are able to gain the victory over those allergies by your body beginning to accept foods back into your system.
Yeah, I think she needs that. Exercise, fresh air, get out, walk. Yeah.
Mm, yeah.
Hopefully we can tell you a story of being healed someday.
Yeah, I'd love to hear it.
Thank you so much, Timothy, for making
You're
time for
welcome.
this talk.
Hmm.
I'll see you again soon.
Okay, good to talk to you.
Yeah, thank you. Good night.
Bye. Good night.